Okay, well, super excited, everyone. Welcome to another webinar featuring experts within the workplace and employee experience space. Today, I'm so excited to be introducing you all to Rachel and Emily, and we'll go through their introductions and their backgrounds shortly. Before we dive into that, welcome again. So we're Epoch. I'm Jade. I'm one of the co-founders. And why we host these webinars is because we're seeing a lot of shifts and changes within the space. And often a lot of you folks come to us asking what are best practices, what are other companies doing? So we thought, why not just spotlight experts that are already just going through a bunch of challenges and figuring a lot of these things out, who are willing to share this across this community. With that said, our first speaker that I'll be introducing today is Emily. Emily currently is at HashiCorp, and she has 20 plus experience across different industries that you'll be hearing more about today. And we'll have Emily introduce herself shortly after. And our second speaker today is Rachel. Currently, she's at Zynga and has been there since they were, I think, like 20 people. So a lot of interesting stories and anecdotes from scaling food and events programs across Zynga. With that said, before we dive into today's conversation, if everyone here that is attending this webinar wants to drop in the chat how you all are feeling today with an emoji, please feel free to do that. It'll be great to warm up the chat and just see how you all are doing today. As you all go into the chat and drop in an emoji, real quick, what you'll be hearing today from Emily and Rachel about are bringing a hospitality mindset to the workplace. How do you create moments of delight and much, much more? Especially as you hear more about Emily and Rachel's backgrounds today, you'll understand that they have a vast experience across culinary and workplace experience. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing now and we'll dive into our conversation today. So to kick things off, Emily, maybe we'll start with you, and then Rachel, could you tell us how you got into workplace experience or employee experience, especially the transition from a culinary background that you both have to where you are today?
Sure. So I have a little bit of an unconventional, I think, trip here to workplace. I started out of school thinking I really wanted to be in the finance field. And so was in public accounting for a couple of years and just felt like I wasn't fulfilled there. Felt like I loved, though, coming home and cooking and baking and throwing parties and dinner parties. And so figure, how can I make this into a career for myself? So I quit my job and I started culinary school, and at the same time started working at my first restaurant, which was exciting. And I fell in love with it right away. And so 18 years later, I was in the restaurant industry for 18 years, and the last 4 of that was having my own bakery in San Francisco. So went from full service upscale restaurants to bakery cafe business to like, okay, I think I'm ready to start this on my own, which was wonderful. But I realized, after starting a family during that time, that it just wasn't the lifestyle for me. It wasn't fitting with our family anymore. And so I needed to find a different path forward. And that's when I started to look at what would be a great way to apply all of my skills and not have to work 6-7 days a week and, super early mornings or evenings. And so as I did that, the workplace field just seemed like a perfect blend of the two things. All of the same elements are in both, applying all of those same things: facilities, real estate, people management, building community, experience, hospitality. So that's how I ended up in workplace.
That's awesome, Emily. Yeah, I remember you telling me you would have to be up at like 3 a.m., like literally in the bakeries. So insane. And yes, we'll dive more into how your skill set from that translates to workplace experience later too, because that'll be super fascinating. But with that, Rachel, would love to hear about how you got into the space and a bit about your culinary background.
Sure. So I think started off in working in restaurants when I was about 15. And I think that was a really a huge thing for me as a start in the hospitality industry. I think I always say this to like people I work with, that I think it's really important for people to work in restaurants. I worked as both a hostess and a server. I think it teaches you customer service skills, teaches you to like be able to work in a fast-paced environment, to multitask. So I had tons of skills coming out of working in restaurants. And then I got my bachelor's degree in hospitality and event management from the University of Florida. And after graduating and working in the field, I kept gravitating towards food, and I kind of craved that extra food knowledge. So I decided to move to San Francisco and go to culinary school. And it was never really my goal to like open a restaurant. I always like really liked the front of house side of it, the hospitality side of it. So I was kind of going into culinary school, imagining myself owning like a catering and events business afterwards. And so while I was in school, Zynga happened to be a block away from my culinary school. So the CEO at the time, came to the school and said, you know, like, does anyone want to work for my company, like cooking for our employees? We're sick of ordering takeout. So me and two other girls that I went to school with were like, yes, we do. I need a job. And so we started working there, just cooking lunches for the employees. At the beginning, it was only like 20 people. And then we grew the program out. I think at one point we were cooking for 3,000 employees in the city. So we were a rapidly growing startup back then. And it really, you know, I would have never known that this was a field to work in, because in Florida, we don't have like tech companies that where everyone feeds their employees, or at least 15 years ago, they didn't. So it was a whole eye-opening career for me. And it's been really, really amazing experience to be able to like grow the program to what it is today. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
That's incredible. I know, Rachel, we spoke about how, like, even from the beginning with 20 employees, the CEO already cared so deeply about the culture, well-being of employees, such that he wanted like fresh food cooked for employees. So that's incredible.
Totally. Yeah. So we started with lunch, and then I think at one point we were doing like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's just evolved over time based on like the needs of the company, the culture of the company. So yeah, it was really great to be like integrated in from the very beginning.
Such a wild ride, I'm sure.
Oh, yes.
And for you both, like, in what ways do you think the hospitality industry has influenced your approach and thinking behind creating exceptional employee experience? Like, are there certain principles and frameworks that you all bring forward? Maybe Rachel, will start with you, and then Emily.
Sure. Yeah, I think hospitality has played a huge part in how we design the workplace. I mean, I think ultimately our team's trying to create a really welcoming workplace, something that feels like home, something that you know, want to return to every day. So in doing that, like, we're always looking for those kind of surprise and delight moments for employees. Luckily, food is one that like has always, you know, resonated with people, and it's a great way to connect with people. And that's really like been embedded in our culture for a while now. I think it's a great way for people to connect over food. Like when we had that cafe in our headquarters, it was just a way for people to always be like, oh, hey, like I haven't seen you in a while, let's sit and grab lunch, and like, just, you know, you're not on my team, but like, let's collaborate. And so it was kind of the hub of those connections. And I think the other thing for, you know, how I approach it with my team is hospitality wise is always like when you go to a hotel or a restaurant, it's like saying yes to your customers, and like, how do we get to that yes? And even if employees ask us for something and maybe it's not in our realm to provide, it's like, how can we help them get there? And that's kind of how we approach it, is just like, come to us and we'll help you figure it out. We'll help you get to a yes. We'll help you get whatever you need. Yeah, just kind of creating really welcoming environments, places where people know your name and are excited to connect with you about what you did over the weekend. So yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great framework, though. Like, kind of whenever employees approach you, it's not immediately like, no, like, why are you asking me this? But to your point, the hospitality mindset is already like, yes, like, how can we make this happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, with Emily, would love to hear from you too.
Yeah, I would say there are a few things. I think first, definitely the hospitality industry, restaurant industry, it's all about people. I mean, it's about food too, but it's about people. And of all kinds, from your employees to like so many walks of life coming into restaurants. And so I think just learning how to interact with people, how to engage with them, and definitely building community in that environment is something that I brought with me, and it's core to certainly our roles here. I think in the restaurant industry too, it's very much about, it's a small business you're running. If you run a restaurant, you're running kind of a whole small business, and you're doing that without any budget and without any people. So, I mean, of course, you have a team, but there aren't all of these, marketing, HR, finance, like all of the roles. So you learn how to be pretty scrappy. And I think that has, it really has helped us move the needle, I think, without a lot of resources, and, especially during the pandemic and times that have been a little bit tougher. And then I would say lastly, and probably most importantly, it's not just a moment or an event or a meal that somebody's having, but it's really about telling a story and bringing people along on that journey. And so that was certainly important in the restaurant industry. And I would say that that's, one of our secrets to success at HashiCorp. It's like bringing people along and really being able to tell that story along the way, so they feel like they're a part of something, and it makes everyone feel more connected.
That's so true. Like when you're choosing a restaurant, often, yes, the food is good, but it's like I'm buying into the fact that this is a local restaurant and like it was started 50 years ago, and like really understanding that story. So yeah, I know HashiCorp does an incredible job at that.
That's such a good point about the restaurant. I feel like most of the time, even though I appreciate the food, I go back for like the service and the story and, like what you're giving towards. And I feel like the service is always like making you feel like you're at home, like it doesn't feel like someone's breathing down your neck or checking in on you constantly. It just makes it feel comfortable. So
yeah, it's so true. And if you don't do that, then they're going to go down the street and
yeah.
go to the other restaurant that's, has great food too.
What you said too about being scrappy, Emily, I think that's such a good point, because like as a restaurant, you don't necessarily have an HR or this or that. You kind of have to wear a lot of hats. And I think that's so important in hospitality training too, is like not training just for like one role, that you're cross-trained on multiple different things, so that if someone comes to you and is like, oh, can I have a espresso? And you're like, oh no, sorry, I'm just a server, I don't know how to operate. It's like being cross-trained, you can always jump in and help wherever you're needed. And that was something really important for our team, is just if someone's out, you jump in and, you can always kind of assist where needed.
Makes for well-rounded people.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is great.
Yes.
It's a great reason to hire people with hospitality background, I think.
Totally.
Yeah, they've dealt with it all. Just always juggling everything.
Yes.
Yes.
And I guess like with that, to bring it a bit more like tangible for the audience here in terms of understanding your perspectives and where you're coming from as we have our conversation, what type of company is HashiCorp and Zynga right now? Are you all remote, hybrid? Emily, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, so we have a lot of people who do work from home. We also have teams that, spend a couple of days in the office each week. So we really believe that the community building community is important, and the office is one of the tools that people have to build community. And it's certainly not one size fits all.
Totally.
Yeah, Zynga is a hybrid. We call it the connected workplace. So either you're on site fully or you're connected, which means 2 to 3 times ish a week. And then we also have remote workers as well.
I love that.
I know, the connected workplace. It's like, it is what it is.
Good name. Yeah.
And with that, I guess like what where does the workplace team for both of you fall within companies like yours? I guess, yeah, Emily.
Yeah, I'm under the finance org, and I think that we kind of run in this sort of neutral territory because of that, which is quite nice. And also it makes us really dive into collaborating pretty deeply with our cross-functional partners. So it works well for us. How about you, Rachel?
We are currently under HR, but in the past I also fell under finance, so I can see it working in both worlds.
Love that. And for you both, like, especially with, I think, COVID and the pandemic, there's a lot of adoption of tools just to make programs scale. So what role does technology play in enhancing employee workplace experience at HashiCorp or Zynga?
Yeah, for us, luckily, we, were well on the road of using Zoom before the pandemic. So that really helped that we all had already adopted it. Same with Slack, I believe, kind of lose track of what happened when, because the pandemic was just that like black hole of time. But for us, I think the biggest one that we've adopted during the pandemic was Epoch. Honestly,
This wasn't planned or a plug, everyone.
No, it's been a huge new platform for us. Previous to Epoch, we were just sharing event invites like through Outlook. And so if it was a happy hour in San Mateo, we would email the San Mateo alias and just put it on their calendars. We'd have like posters throughout the office. And then during the pandemic, we had a huge increase in our employee resource groups. And so the employee resource groups had tons of events and they were just blasting it out on Outlook. And it started to become very noisy. And so we didn't want people to lose track of what events were coming up. And there were just so many events happening. And so we needed somewhere to better organize and promote those events, but also to be able to better target them to which audiences made the most sense. And so we brought on Epoch to be able to help with some of that, and also to be able to kind of cross promote as well. So like, let's just say one of our ERGs, Women at Zynga, wanted to host like a speaker. So we would share it in our Women at Zynga Slack channel with the help of Epoch, but then you could also cross promote it to the other ERG channels in case they wanted to join. So it just kind of really helped us target which audiences we wanted to promote to, and which in turn kind of really helped our engagement increase as well.
I second Epoch.
Thank you both.
Yeah, I think that if to take a step back, I think the theme around these is around, we again kind of start scrappy, and then we like, what kind of technology can we put in place to make for a more polished look? And that, I think, enhances the employee experience. So with Epoch, we were doing a bunch of events before as well. And now there's this pretty and organized, way in which we can share events. So it's a really holistic view of what's going on across the company, which I appreciate. One other piece of technology that my team uses a lot is Canva. It's like we have our brand kit uploaded in it. And so, without, if we went to the design team with everything that we wanted to create, like, please don't come to us anymore. And they're so busy doing other things that it allows us to like make a, again, like a really polished look with whatever we're doing, and kind of be on brand, the workplace brand, but also HashiCorp's brand. So we like that a lot. And Slack is, of course, huge with building community in a more of a virtual world. So we kind of continually look at how we can optimize Slack to engage with people and build community in that way.
Mm-hmm. +1 on Canva. We love Canva.
I know from our previous conversation, it's like a little like secret for
a
lot of workplace teams.
You're like, I'm a designer all of a sudden. I don't know how it happened overnight. Best kept secret.
Yeah.
Yeah, to Emily's point, I think, yeah, keeping a coherent brand and strategy is important. And the look and feel of these programs is very core to that, it seems.
And it just keeps like a consistency in the brand too of, if we have a holiday party or whatever it is, like you send out the invite and it's got the brand and all the way through like the menu cards and just everything. It's so efficient to keep it all within there and design it with the same brand.
Yeah. That storytelling kind of back to
that. Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah. And for you both, maybe Emily, we'll start with you. Like, could you share a story or an example of an exceptional workplace experience program?
Yeah, well, so I guess I'll maybe talk about the framework that we use for our experience programs. And so the mission of our workplace team at HashiCorp is driving connection. And so we're always working to put that lens on everything that we touch. So whether that's about offices or services that we provide or events that we're putting on. So we really like to think about when an employee joins HashiCorp, it's not that they're just starting a job. They're not just joining a company, but they're really joining this internal community. And so we partnered with our people team last year to help kind of redesign the onboarding program that we have here. And one of the things that we really pushed for and I think ultimately landed in a nice place is introducing our internal community to new hires before even their first day. So they, know that that's a really important part of joining HashiCorp, and they can hopefully get excited about different ways in which they can join. And then, we kind of follow that along as they start their first day and keep that story going so they can carry the community with them on their journey as they start.
I love that, especially as like having a mission as a team is so important of like all the decisions you make to even working with the onboarding team. So like every new hire knows like they have a community here is just really awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess with that, Rachel, over to you.
I love that. I feel like community building is so important. And so kind of similarly, but one of the most exceptional things I feel like we have for creating community is our employee resource groups. We call them ZERGs, so Zynga Employee Resource Groups. And they're self-initiated voluntary groups for employees who share a social connection or shared interest to get together. We currently have 12 different ZERGs, and during the onboarding process for employees, they can learn about how they can join, as it's a great way to like first meet people when you get started at Zynga, and you can like instantly feel like you're part of a community. Our team kind of gets involved, our events team gets involved. The ZERGs are managed and kind of underneath the HR umbrella. But our events team gets involved because we help plan and execute events for the different ZERGs. So like for Juneteenth, our Black Zynga Union, we partnered with them to host a cooking class. And then usually during like all the different cultural heritage months, we'll create and share recipes on our social channels that like tie to their theme. We'll host happy hours around the theme. Like last year we did a Pride Month happy hour. So it kind of just depends on like what's going on, but it's always super fun to get to partner with all the different employee resource groups. I also have been on the Women at Zynga leadership team for over 10 years and currently stand as their executive sponsor. So that's one, again, it's like all volunteer based. So you decide how much time you want to put into it. But the community is all like thrive because there's so many passionate employees that are a part of them. So yeah, I think that's a really awesome way in how we create community, and how I feel like also it's like a huge retention tool for employees at Zynga. So
That's awesome, especially like hearing that like a ZERG or like an ERG was already in existence like 10 years ago at Zynga.
Yeah, it was, in fact, Women at Zynga was one of our first ZERGs that was created. So Yeah.
And I guess like Rachel, just a quick follow-up, like how do these Zergs know or like ERGs know to turn to the workplace team, or what does that partnership look like? I know a lot of people wonder how workplace can like effectively help out without like overstepping.
Yeah.
How does it look like for you all?
So they usually come to us for help with logistics. So if like we have one Zerg that's Z Cares, and they focus on community and how giving back to our different local communities. And so they host a lot of donation drives, blood drives. So they'll come to the workplace team to help with like the bins and, you know, the communication of these types of events. And then they'll obviously our events team falls under workplace as well. So we help support them with event logistics. So that's usually kind of how we partner together with them and help support.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's important that they know to like turn to you. I guess like, yeah, Emily, yeah, is there
Absolutely.
anything on your end?
Did you say, sorry, Jade, repeat that?
Oh, sorry, Emily. I thought you wanted to like add something. So I was like, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, Z Cares. I would join. That sounds like a really
yeah, there's a lot of really great ones, and there, you know, anyone's encouraged to join as an ally too. So, I mean, you could be a part of all 12 if you want.
And kind of like in the same vein of that, like, can you both share maybe like a specific initiative that you've implemented that has made a significant impact on employee engagement? Maybe Emily, we'll start with you.
Sure. So we, you know, again, in the kind of theme of driving connection and with many of our employees working from home, we focus a lot of our time on what kind of virtual events to roll out that are impactful. And so a couple of things that I think with all of them, we look at how can we really kind of bring employees at HashiCorp to life and, you know, bring them together, whether they're across the world or on a totally different team. So one of those things is a micro conversation series that we run. And we, you know, look for employees who have something to share, a passion outside of work, or maybe a side hustle, or, you know, something just fun that they want to talk about. And so we've had things like an employee who, you know, goes around in her van for half of a year and works in different places, from a campsite or from different locations, an employee who has a pet pig, people who've had their own businesses. So it's, I think, a really fun way to connect people. Kind of in the same vein, a musical coffee house series is another program that we do, which is HashiCorp employees who are musicians, you know, come like they're on a coffee house stage in a cafe and play an instrument, and people can just join and listen and work and hang out there. We just started a video series called Hello, My Name Is, which is like a quick minute video introducing an employee from somewhere in the world in different departments, and it gives them a moment to say who they are and where they live and a little bit about their country, and answer a few fun icebreaker questions. So, you know, just all bringing people together in this like big virtual world that we're in.
Yeah, like really humanize everyone across HashiCorp, and like, yeah, they're like real people, even though it's often you see them on a screen.
Yeah, or you might not even have the opportunity to see them or meet them because they're not on your team. So yeah, it brings a new light to who's here and who you might want, like, have a shared interest with.
I love that. And Rachel, yeah, any specific initiatives that stand out to you?
Totally. While I was listening to Emily, one thing that like stood out to me too was during the cultural heritage months, like our Zergs do something similar where they do employee spotlight. So they'll select like 3 to 4 people within the Zerg to spotlight both on Zynga's like social channels and on our blog. And it just really like is a nice way to meet people that, you know, you didn't necessarily know, or someone from a different office. And same thing, it like asks them a few icebreaker questions. And so that's a really great way to highlight people around the business. And then one other thing that I was going to share, which was actually a few years ago, but something that definitely stands out in a way that the team was incredibly creative in a time that no one knew how to engage employees, which was at the beginning of the pandemic. So obviously we went from all, being chefs and running in-house culinary programs and events and used to connecting with people on the daily, but in person. And so how do you pivot from that into connecting and engaging with employees and events in a virtual world? And so at the beginning, we were all kind of like, I don't know how to do this. And so we would take a stab at different things, and some of the events, just like we weren't getting the engagement we were hoping for. And so we thought, why not try cooking classes? And so we hosted a few cooking classes, same thing, engagement wasn't like great. And so the team and I came up with the idea to send ingredient kits to the participants. And that like really drove up engagement. And it started to become this like really incredibly fun thing during the pandemic, where you could get on a Zoom call with 300 plus people across North America. And it wasn't just employees, it was like their families, their kids, their roommates. And so you really got to like know people through cooking. So we would all learn the recipe and cook it together. And then I think the most fun part of it was through Epoch, we were able to create these Slack channels. So it'd be like, we had a pickling class one summer. And so the pickling class, like to this day, it was like 2.5 years ago, people will still share photos like, hey, I made the pickles again this weekend and like made them for, my summer vacation or whatever it was. My family loved it. And so just being able to connect with people on something like that, like years later, is really cool. So that was something that was, like I said, a new thing for us, a new initiative. And it just like was really fun to be able to bring people together that way.
Rachel, were you and your team the chefs teaching?
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was so fun. And we actually like found a catering company in South LA, I want to say. And she, same thing, was like, I don't, like she used to host in-person cooking classes and was kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing with my business anymore. And we're like, well, we have this idea. We haven't been able to find anyone. Cause like we went to like all the meal prep companies and asked if they would partner with us. If we gave them a recipe, would they like do a special one-off box, like with our ingredients? And they were like, no, you'd have to do one of our recipes. And so we asked this caterer if she would do it. And she was like, I mean, why not? Like, I don't have anything else to do. And it ended up being like, she started doing it with other companies. And so it like really, this little idea like grew into something really fun and profitable for her. So it was great.
So neat.
Yeah, it was super neat, super fun. And same thing, but back to Canva, we would like create the recipe cards in Canva, send them in the boxes. So everything was like really branded. And so definitely something like a memory I'll keep with me on. We don't really do them as much anymore because now we're back into office, but it was really fun during the pandemic to connect with people that way.
Yeah, so creative. Especially like at pickling. I love that. Pickling enthusiasts and Zynga.
Yeah.
And with that, everyone, I know we have around 10 more minutes. So if you all have questions for Rachel and Emily, feel free to drop it in the chat or the Q&A section. We're going to wrap up with around 2 more questions. But with that, Emily and Rachel would love to just see if you have any hacks or pro tips for the audience on things that you've seen really successful in pushing forward an employee program or an event. Emily, let's start with you.
Sure. Well, I guess a couple things. One is, let's see, I think that, going to cross-functional folks and stakeholders, really, again, being able to tell that story to sort of pull them in and make them really interested in what you're doing, and also and maybe we don't take ourselves too seriously. So really trying to maybe not necessarily even have things fully baked, but be willing to experiment. And that I think has, if you go in with that mind frame of experimentation and might not work, and that's okay, and we'll move on. I think that has helped us push forward things. And then we're also trying out something now we're calling it the Workplace Insider Network, which is around, like finding kind of people within each department at HashiCorp who are insiders, who maybe have, a different perspective, and we can reach out to this network to get some real insight into what, different teams are looking for and how things are landing with them, and various types of insight. So we'll see how it goes, but we're trying that out now.
I love that. And Rachel, I know you mentioned there's something similar you all tried.
Yes, very similar. I love the name of it, Workplace Insider. So yeah, similarly, when we opened up our headquarters in San Mateo last September, we knew it was going to be a big change management for employees, because we pre-pandemic had our headquarters in San Francisco, and it was a much bigger office. And so moving to San Mateo was just going to be a change for people. It was also change coming out of the pandemic and going back to an office in general. And so we pulled what we called an ambassador group. So we worked with the leaders of each team to say, like, help us nominate someone from your team to serve as an ambassador. And then we would bring them in for monthly meetings to kind of line up some of like the new changes and like what was upcoming and like key dates, and they would help disseminate that information back to their teams, but also bring feedback to the workplace team. So like as we were designing the building and rolling out programs, like that, we could really consider their feedback in all of that. And I think that helped us be really successful when opening up the space. And I try and like carry that on through even like event promoting, like I have like a team of EAs and office admins, and anytime we're going to promote an event or start a new program, like we pull them in to kind of brainstorm and share, and then they help bring it back to their teams. And so I think just always having that team that you can get direct feedback from helps tremendously in workplace, because we can't all just like assume our ideas are the best ideas. And so it's really good to know directly from the teams kind of what's working and what's not.
That's awesome. Yeah. Very collaborative across both of your teams.
Yeah.
And with that, just one last question, as I know a few folks here have more global companies. So could you share some of the considerations you might have when you start thinking about scaling out like global culture initiatives and programs? Emily, start with you, and then Rachel.
Yeah. So I think we do a lot of things. We're a small team, don't have a ton of budget. So we've always kind of looked to like what can we do? And we start very manually. And so I think as we're scaling, we're looking for tools that we can implement now to carry on those great programs that we're doing, or things that, services maybe that we have that will help make those more scalable. So like Epoch is, I think, again, a great example here, an easy one. We did all of this stuff anyway, but, this just makes it, again, look a lot prettier and work a lot better for us. We just are about to launch an internal swag store, which is, a lot of people come to us asking for swag, and it's just not scalable and hasn't been for a while for us, our workplace team, to either keep all of the swag in the San Francisco office and then, reply to all of the demands of people needing swag and teams needing swag for offsites and such. So yeah, by the end of the month, people will be able to go on to a store and shop and, get their team swag and whatever they need. So those are, I think, using those tools, I would say, is what we're really leaning toward to pull those things off, and then hopefully get better metrics around them as well.
That makes sense. Yeah, for me, I think collaboration is also huge when trying to scale. We have a lot of M&A offices across the globe, and so some of them have their own culture, and some of them are really integrated and want to adopt our events and how we do things, and others have their own culture. And so it's just creating those connections and better understanding how the office approaches events. Do we want to mirror some of the events we're doing in North America? So we want to get super ahead and sharing kind of what's coming up in the pipeline. And most of the time when I, tell them about Epoch and show them the dashboard, they're all just like blown away. And so then it's a great way to then, get more employees using Epoch. And so that's been a really helpful tool for us to be able to scale events, especially virtual events, because that's like one thing the pandemic taught us is why not open up the virtual events to everyone across the globe? And so we're doing more and more of that. And it's just, I think, the in-person events where those connections really play in to either help them, like I said, kind of mirror what we're doing at other offices, or learn from them and, kind of brainstorm and take ideas from them and approach that in other offices.
Love that. Well, Rachel, Emily, I know we're about to hit time, and we did get a few questions in Q&A. So I know a few folks might have like a hard stop at 1 p.m., but thank you again for joining. We are going to wrap up with 2 Q&A questions and then final thoughts in terms of advice that Rachel and Emily want to impart on you all to wrap up. But before we do that, just 2 quick questions from the audience. And Emily, Rachel, maybe one of you all can take it, or if you both have thoughts on it, that'd be awesome. So the first one that we'll choose from is from Katie here. So how did you determine the right level of team to pull from for those meetings? I think Katie's referring to those meetings where you're listening out to see people's like feedback and like those influencer programs or the connection programs. At a larger global company, that could mean meeting with 100 people in the room. Was that similar to your experience? Or the insider programs, that's what I was thinking of.
Oh, gotcha. I think that would be for Emily then.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, Jade, then?
Totally. So how do you determine the right level of team to pull from for those meetings? Because she mentioned that a larger global company, would this mean like meeting with 100 people at a time?
Yeah, so this is, I think, a great example of where we start small, and it's like at an experimentation phase right now. So we have like 25 people, I think. Our company is, over 2,000 people. So it's not a huge cross section, but we, took care in picking, I think, individuals who kind of we've heard have their pulse on different things happening within their organization and are kind of social beings themselves. And so I think if we see that this is successful, we'll grow it more and have more representation. But at this stage, it's an experiment. And so I think we'll try it out and see what we get out of it and go from there. It's a good question, though.
It is a great question.
Yeah.
I see Katie's comment in the chat too, and I see what she is meaning too. Yeah, for the San Mateo ambassador group that I spoke about, we really try, I think it was only about 20 ambassadors. So we tried to just get one person either per studio or per department to kind of sit as the ambassador. Because I agree. I mean, having too many people is sometimes overwhelming. I would personally probably break it into like chunks so that you don't have 100 people in a meeting trying to give feedback, because that could just be inefficient for everybody. So smaller groups would be my recommendation.
Okay. And then maybe like a quick example from you both. If you all have like low budget, someone asked here, if your budget is limited, what low cost event do you think your employees valued the most?
I think it's the events, that just bring people together in like thoughtful ways. Yesterday, for example, we at the San Francisco office went over to the Salesforce Transit Center Park and had lunch together. Oh. It didn't cost us anything, yeah. But it was so nice. And it was like truly about connecting people. And so I think those are meaningful. How about you, Rachel?
Yeah, I was going to say similar things. Like I remember we would get together after lunch and go for a walk around the block. Like it's just those like connections, and also creating the time for people. Like, I think people just get so busy in their day that if you just put it out on Slack, like 1 o'clock, we'll walk around the block, like then people are like, oh, okay, I'll go do that. It's like, you just have to like create that moment for them. And to your point, like, it doesn't always have to cost money. So
yeah, the space, that's a huge
like creating the
to it.
opportunity, the space. Yeah.
Yeah. Like giving them like almost that space, the permission, like, and I love that it
Totally.
rhymes. 1 o'clock, go for a walk.
Yeah.
Amazing. Then with that, let's wrap up. Emily, Rachel, curious if you had any final advice or thoughts to impart on the audience today when you think about like hospitality best practices in a workplace setting.
I mean, for me, it's like, I've always cared so much about people and like value people in those relationships. And sometimes I will say, like, it's hard to train hospitality. So it's like, you're really in the interview process, really looking for people that have that same passion, because it's going to be so much easier to train people that like care and value hospitality. So that's always been really big for me, is that I try and lead by example and show people like how much I care about people, and hopefully that resonates with the team, and in turn they do the same. So that's what I'll end with.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I think that, as a team, and I'll give a shout out to my team because they make this all possible, but we have, I think, conviction as a group that hospitality is super important, and that's how we show up. And then we also invest in our team, like building our team culture and, getting to know each other. And we do we spend a lot of time doing that because we think it's really important. And then we all show up in, the right way. So.
I love that. Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's about the people that you all have working with you all.
Yeah, and it's important. Like, I always encourage my team, I'm like, go out to dinner, like go on a trip, like, go experience hospitality other places. And I think that helps you appreciate it more.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, with that, let us wrap up. Everyone, thank you so much for attending today. I'm going to share back my screen and wrap us up with the last minute. So again, thank you so much for attending today. Today you heard from Emily from HashiCorp and Rachel from Zynga. I guess Rachel and Emily, if people wanted to find you, how could they?
LinkedIn. I also have a really easy email, rachel@zynga.com. So feel free to email me.
The original. I love that.
Same, LinkedIn or Jade at HashiCorp. Yeah, would love to chat with anyone.
So nice to meet you, Emily, and thanks so much for having us, Jade.
Yeah, thank you, Jade.
Of course. This was such a great conversation. Yes, we'll see everyone again soon. And yes, thank you again for joining us today. If you all ever have any questions in terms of how to connect with Rachel or Emily, you can always reach out to me, jade@epochapp.com. Again, thank you so much. And if you have others that you want us to spotlight here for one of these series, please feel free to reach out. As you can see, Emily and Rachel had so much to share, and there's so many great learnings that we would love to just continuously share with the rest of the community. But Emily and Rachel, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see everyone soon.
Bye.
Bye all.